is a song of appreciation. Yeah. To all our partners, donors, sponsors, building nations. Whoa. One at a time, through our books, showing Australia its African heritage, connecting the world with African literature. That's why we as Africa World Books say thank you. Thank you. Allow us to mention a few names, men and women doing the most. Institutions making a difference, people changing communities. University of Western Australia, thank you for being our mother, and through Africa Research Engagement Center offering excellent benefits. Professor Richard Vokes, David Mikler and the team. We say thank you through your friendship serving community. Everyone is keen to join you now, academics, scholars and authors too. Sharing the knowledge students who tomorrow will get to lead us to. Connecting the world, connecting our culture. A land of us, we're better together. Equipped with knowledge, success they brew. Celebrating foundations for children, the parents. This is a song of appreciation. Yeah. To all our partners, donors, sponsors, building nations. Whoa. One at a time, through our books, showing Australia its African heritage, connecting the world with African literature. That's why we as Africa World Books say thank you. A great people and a great society. Australia to our neighbors, a global world will be. A sister project team didn't care about resources. With a pure heart and happiness, they hosted children's books. Now kids and parents smiling, trust in the land they will invest. Thank you Tracy Cave, thank you Peter Warden, yo. Thank you Africa World Books for investing in us. Thank you Africa World Books for investing in us. For fish to survive, there must be water, and for humans to stay well, we need a decent neighbors. We must play our role in building our peace and be the support that everyone needs. This is a song of appreciation. Yeah. To all our partners, donors, sponsors, building nations. Whoa. One at a time, through our books, showing Australia its African heritage, connecting the world with African literature. That's why we as Africa World Books say thank you. Education is the power, books are a lighting tower. The city of Psalm's generosity is absolutely factual. Multiculturalism is genuinely exhibited, and the likes of David Veron, the financial expert, encourages. Master the 4 financial keys for your own future security. From you we truly benefit, that's why we say thank you. This is a song of appreciation. Yeah. To all our partners, donors, sponsors, building nations. Whoa. One at a time, through our books, showing Australia its African heritage, connecting the world with African literature. That's why we as Africa World Books say thank you.
Welcome everybody, my name's Tom Wilson. I'm a librarian here with the City of Wanneroo at Girraween Library. And we're here today to launch a book that's been long in the making. To the Horizon and Beyond, a life of service to the Red Cross by our guest, Hans-Rudi Braawand, who's here today. So just before, put your hands together, thank you.
Thank you.
So just a little bit of housekeeping. The bathroom is on the corner there of the wall. Emergency exits behind you and out the front door. And if you could all please put your phones onto silent. If you've not done that already, that would be wonderful. So today we'll be talking for about 45 minutes, and I'll be asking just a few prompting questions about the book, which I've recently had the pleasure of reading. We have some copies here for sale, and you'll be able to buy those after, and I'm sure Hans-Rudi would be happy to sign a copy for you.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
so Hans-Rudi, thank you for your life story. It's been a wonderful read. It doesn't cover all of your life, going back to the early years of your childhood, but it does focus on your time working for the Red Cross around the world.
Well, I still have another project which Peter May helped me to write the first 16 years of my life. When I grew up, I was born on Valentine's Day in 1932. And my mother said it was extremely cold when I was born. It was 20 minus.
How much? 19?
Sorry?
20 minus, was it?
20 minus.
20 minus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's very cold.
but we had a midwife to help me coming to see the light.
So that was in the hills of Switzerland.
Yeah, in the most beautiful village you can imagine in Switzerland. The village is surrounded by high mountains, 3,000 and 4,000 meter high mountains. In between are glaciers. And in winter time, the sun, the rising sun, disappears behind the mountains up to 4 times. And the day when it goes all over the mountains is for every house in the village a big day. In our house it was always the 11th of February, and my father would always say, "Wow, look, today the sun is able to get over the mountain again."
But Switzerland, for those who've been there, you probably know it's a very wealthy country compared to many other countries in the world. And it's quite a safe country. Everything is very efficient, works well. But apparently you felt the need to get beyond Switzerland at a certain point in your life.
As a small boy, I was always longing to see other countries. Even stamps from other countries fascinated me. And I was always looking on the world map with my little index finger, went to towns or over oceans. And later on, many years later, when I first time with my wife went to Addis Ababa, it was an incredible experience for me because I remember Addis Ababa, the name always fascinated me. And now I was there, or when I flew with a plane over Lake Nyassa in Malawi, 600 kilometer long lake, I was also with my finger going over it. Yeah, these were incredible things, but I was a bit unlucky. Because they could not understand my dialect. They started to laugh and made fun and asked from which country you come from. But I could understand the people, the dialect of Basel, because a lot of tourists from that town always came to my home village. Yeah, so.
But the book is structured around the different countries you've spent your life working in, and I think it was 1968 you first went to Nigeria. So it was around 40 years of working across the world for the Red Cross. Do you want to give the audience a little idea of which countries you worked in, which regions you got to know? I developed a flower allergy as a baker, but I was determined to complete my apprentice time 3 years to have a certificate, but I had to give it up. I completed on a Saturday my 3 years, and on Monday I started to work as a chemistry worker in the company Roche, a famous company, for 2 years, and then I had to go to the army school at the age of 20,
and became a truck driver. That became my new profession because I could not work anymore as a baker. It was too troublesome. So I was also unable to go abroad, which was my intention. So it took many years to wait. I was always looking for opportunities, but if you are a truck driver, you have no chance to go overseas. Nobody needs you. But then one day I heard in the news that the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross in Geneva, was looking for new people to go to Nigeria, where there was a terrible civil war in Biafra. And immediately reacted and phoned up to Geneva and asked if I could get an interview. And they phoned me back 3 days later and said, gave me a date to come to Geneva. So they tested my English. I was lucky, I just managed to pass English. I was already 36. And then I still had to wait for a few more months till I could go to Biafra, to the occupied part of Biafra. That was the most fantastic experience I ever had. It was very dangerous. In the civil war, I had to go along the front line to medical teams to see what they were in need of, because there was no radio communication, no telephone, all was dead. So suddenly I was ambushed from the bush. Or enemy planes flew over, and when they saw my white Land Rover moving, they started to dive down. But when they came closer, obviously they saw the Red Crosses painted on the car, and then they flew away. That was my good luck.
That would have been a very frightening experience.
It was, yeah, but I was still young, and it was quite adventurous. You'll be wondering what all I experienced in this first mission, but I knew I finally had found my future, my new future. I really, really enjoyed my work. I was the boss of a huge store with thousands of tons of relief goods, which had to be distributed to refugees and to medical teams along the front line. And I really, really enjoyed what I experienced there, what I learned. And
so much of your career for the Red Cross was working as someone who would organize the distribution of emergency goods for refugees around the world. I guess that doesn't happen spontaneously. You have to hire the truck drivers, get the trucks, and pay people. There's a lot of logistics behind all of that, and so part of your career was mastering that world of logistics.
Yeah, because I had already experience as a storekeeper. I tried all sorts of things, not only driving trucks, tankers. In between, I worked in stores and became quite experienced. That's why they gave me obviously that responsibility. And I really, really thrived in that experience. I knew my inner strength, the potential came alive in that first mission. I was surprised what all I was suddenly able to do, easy to do. And so the next mission.
I suppose you were motivated by the fact that if you did your job well,
yeah,
people would eat and live.
Yeah.
And if wouldn't, and they could die.
True.
So there was a sense of urgency about everything you did.
Yeah, it really lifted my spirit, that experience. And over time was easy for me because I loved what I do. And when you love your job, really love, then you don't get tired. But then I also got sick. I got very sick. I got malaria. And I couldn't believe when I suddenly was in bed, I felt cold from inside. Our cook brought all sorts of blankets, but I still felt cold.
Is
And
this in Nigeria? You suffered
that was in Nigeria.
first mission.
Yeah, in my first mission. But they all came running to see, to encourage me. But the next day I felt all right. I went back to work. And so to care.
There were no long-standing symptoms from malaria?
No,
Oh,
no.
I was lucky.
Well, in between, I got it 2-3 more times.
Okay. Is it still a big problem across sub-Saharan Africa
Yeah.
today?
Yeah, but I don't have any problems. I never had any problems. Only later in another mission in Africa, when I was already married, I got a terrible, it was probably dengue fever.
In Sudan?
That was in Somalia.
Oh, Somalia.
But my wife had arrived also about 2 or 3 weeks before, and she saved my life. I had lost 8 kilos in 4 days,
Very dehydrated.
and my wife found me naked, walking around in one room in the night. And she guided me back to the bed, and I had a terrible headache. I felt it explodes anytime. 24 hours I was turning in the bed from one side to the other one, hoping it will be a bit easier to bear. But she found a job herself, because she can speak Urdu, the Pakistan
Well,
language.
he had dengue fever. You know, it was raging everywhere, people were dying, and the doctors refused to come, and so they would leave the medicine at the door, the painkillers, and they would go away, so I would take. So then what I did was, I gave him cold water fermentation in the head, you know, because in my country when people are sick, they try to cure them first, you know, before running to the doctor. So I did that every time I changed and put cold fermentation, and in the end the doctor said, you really saved his life, because the blood goes into the brain, and when it bursts, the people die.
So that would have been one of the lowlights of your career, I have to say.
Yeah. But
Maybe the low light.
But I went after 2 weeks, I went back to work because we had so much work. I started to work for 3 hours every day, and then 4 hours, and like this, slowly, but it took about 4 months till I felt I'm the old fellow again.
Because I suppose some of these regions you worked in, health was not a given. There are, choleras in some chapters of your book. There's a cholera outbreak. You're not allowed to refer to it as cholera.
Yeah.
In case you scare the public, you have to call it a
Yeah, in Sudan, in the biggest refugee camp in Africa, in eastern Sudan on the border to Eritrea, we had 150,000 refugees, and we built a new hospital from local material. When suddenly cholera broke out, and the doctors had to open another tent city or not city, 2-3 tents for the cholera patients.
Quarantined area.
Quarantined about a kilometer away on desert ground. And when I went there for the first time, it was the hottest season. Extremely hot when I went into one tent. There were 40 beds and 40 cholera patients. You can imagine the stench which was in there. I had to, every bed, they made a hole in the strings on the bed and put a bucket underneath or a bowl, and it had to be regularly emptied. And I helped to empty these buckets outside to pour in the deep hole. 6 months we had cholera. About 1,700 patients we had. We were not allowed to communicate on the radio with Switzerland to use the word cholera. We had to call it gastroenteritis. Nobody knew what that is. And said, but cholera is not actually dangerous. If somebody comes quick, they get dehydration salt, and they basically can go home after 2 days. It's amazing, but if you come too late, then it's very, very serious. So from these 1,700 patients in 6 months, they had a 24 hours service with doctors and nurses. Only 32 patients died, which is amazing little number. When you hear the word cholera, you get scared.
Yeah.
So it's not actually dangerous if you get immediately rehydration salt. Yeah.
But after Nigeria, you went to Turkey. Was it that was something?
No, in Turkey that was the second mission.
Yeah.
Actually, that was accidentally I found that. I went with a club on Easter. On Easter time, we had a clubhouse in the mountains, and we went skiing, walking up on slopes with the skis. And then I started to talk with an architect of the club, and he told me about his project, and I told him about what I did in Nigeria, Biafra. So he became quite interested because he said, I need a coordinator for the project to go to Turkey to build prefabricated schoolhouses. And that was my second mission. First in Switzerland, there were 10 factories in Switzerland, which each one built a part of these prefabricated schoolhouses. So I had to coordinate. On certain days they had to load railway carriages to send it to eastern Switzerland to the border, and then a train would eventually go to Turkey. It took 3 weeks to reach that province of Kütahya. And when I had done all this coordination, I flew to Turkey, and I found all sorts of surprises, because in Turkey they had no idea what to do with these building materials. They just...
So you had to organize builders.
No, that was the builders were contractors with workers. And I was actually the guest of the Turkish government. I could stay free in the guest house in the sugar factory, and an empty, huge hall was separated for our material. and two Turkish engineers had come to Turkey, now to Switzerland, to learn how to put these parts together, to build these schoolhouses in 22 villages. But when I contacted them, they both refused. Oh, we have no time for that. And so that was a big problem. The Swiss Red Cross would have to organize an architect or a builder. And I thought it over because I was the only one who had an ID. So I sent a message to Switzerland, to Bern, and said, I trust myself, I thought it over, to take over, to build these schoolhouses. I felt, I'm from the village from Grindelwald, I think I can do that. And they were very surprised and congratulated me and wrote if I need any help, they would do anything for me. So the first schoolhouse was very difficult for me because I had to pretend that I'm a builder. They had no idea. I had to pretend that I have all the answers. But of course I did my homework. The first 90 days in Turkey, I never took a day off, never. I had to learn myself on my own, and I couldn't ask the Turks anything. But I had my own problem with the construction department in that town, Kütahya.
You encountered quite a lot of corruption and bureaucratic inertia, didn't you? So in one episode you recount going to Istanbul and dealing with the different layers of bureaucracy in order to get generators back to the town. So yeah,
I had to go to Ankara, to the capital.
To Ankara, not
to
Istanbul.
Ankara 2 times, yeah. And anyway, 2 times I had to go. The second time I had to really threaten them that I will inform Switzerland and the Swiss ambassador in Ankara that I will threaten them and the project coordinator from the politician in Switzerland if they don't give me a generator to screw the ceiling much faster rather than by hand, that it would be done with an electric
Because you had
screwdriver.
200 schools to build. Was it 200? No.
Sorry?
How many schools did you have to build?
31.
31. So there's a lot of screws would have been
True.
doing by hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, in one school, they were so happy and grateful that, of course, I had always to have a translator with me. So they said, at lunchtime, the village elder said, we would like to honor you because you built us a new school. And I was wondering how they want to honor me. He said, we want you to be the muezzin. You know what the muezzin is? The man who sings the prayer from the minaret. I should do that. I said, well, I can't do that. I'm not a Turk. I wouldn't know what to do, what to sing.
And you don't speak Arabic.
I can't. Arabic. No, we know that. You can sing what you want. So I had.
So what did you sing?
Sorry?
What did you sing?
Well, first I gave the camera to my interpreter, to Ferit, and he was laughing at me because for him it was fun that I had to go up on the minaret. So 5 minutes before 5 o'clock I was standing at the bottom and I went in And when I looked up, high up, I could see a little light where the platform was. And the staircase went around inside the minaret. I felt I was the loneliest man on earth. I
Phil,
felt
just if we pause for a moment, for anyone here who might not have visited Muslim country, several times a day you'll hear the call to prayer from a minaret,
Yeah.
sung in Arabic, and usually on loudspeakers these days. I don't think there were loudspeakers
No.
on this occasion,
no.
but it's very unusual that anyone apart from a local would ever sing the call to prayer.
So anyway, eventually I reached the top and I had to take a little rest before I went out. The men had actually started to line up on the bottom of the minaret. They didn't go to the mosque. Maybe they wanted to be at the bottom in case I fall down to hold me. So as soon as I went out, the sun was shining in my face. I lost all nervousness and I felt all right that I could see down into the valley. It was beautiful, and not far away was a pole with a platform and a nest, and the stork was breeding. It was a picture of 1001 nights for me. It was an incredible, it was a highlight of my life. And then I noticed that everybody looks up to me. When will he start? So I started to make a funnel and I called 5 times, Allah Akbar. 5 times, and they started to pray. Allah Akbar, that means Allah is great. And then afterwards, the Mukhtar had said to me, you can sing whatever you want. So I started to sing the song of Grindelwald, my home village, in Switzerland, and they kept on praying. I felt very proud. And then I sang a song in French. And then I thought, I think that's enough. And I again 5 times, Allah Akbar. And that was the end. I felt so happy. But I slowly went down and they congratulated me. And they said, you did very well as a beginner.
But it seems you did encounter, as we were saying before, quite a lot of resistance from maybe builders who were using their time to do their own projects when they were meant to be working for you, or bureaucrats who didn't want to give you what you needed, but you pushed and you got there in the end, and you triumphed.
I had to try all sorts of tricks because I was the only one who was responsible for these schoolhouses. There were sometimes 4, 5, 6 schoolhouses in villages far away from each other, built together, and I had hardly any time to go everywhere. Sometimes they made really stupid things. Once I had to take the roof sheets all down again. They were not exactly. They were at the bottom. It was like a staircase. They didn't bother because I could not go in time. My car was in the workshop for 3 days. So when I came, I couldn't believe. So we had to take all the sheets down and put the beams slanting so that the same holes can be used again.
But you did triumph in the end, and you're right that one of the things that you got from that time in Turkey was confidence. So it increased your confidence
It did.
when you left Turkey.
I think it was a masterpiece. They never found out, not even the architects in the building company found out that I was not a builder. They never found out. I think I would have become a good actor.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I suppose that's a problem in many of the countries. So if we'll just list the countries you worked in. So Nigeria, Turkey, Somalia, Sudan, Bangladesh.
Yes, the third one was actually Bangladesh,
Those are the major
Bangladesh.
countries, right?
which I went with a medical team to Bangladesh.
It was a long flight, wasn't it, from Switzerland?
Yeah, with a DC-6, a Red Cross plane.
You stopped many times along the way.
It took, I think, 28 hours even to reach Delhi from Switzerland. So it was,
You described Dubai Airport as a very small airport.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a village, Dubai.
Strange to think
They
today.
had a little duty-free shop inside, and I could have bought a bottle of whiskey, Johnny Walker, for $2.50.
That's one of the strange things about this book is that there are all of these small details that somehow Hans Ruedi has remembered. Because I asked him earlier if he'd written a journal at the time, and that's how we had all these details. He said he didn't. He just all of these things were vividly burnt in
I
his
just
memory.
took some in between. I took certain notes, but you know, when I experienced these incredible things in my life, it's like going into a computer you could never forget. If I would have worked in an office for 30, 40 years, I would have no idea what I did when. But I can remember. I want to talk now when I went to Bangladesh. We arrived there 10 days after it had become Bangladesh. When we left in Switzerland with this DC-6, it was actually still East Pakistan. But when we arrived, it had become Bangladesh.
Wow.
And so the medical team was supposed to be in Dhaka, at the capital, to work in a hospital, but it was damaged in the war, and so we went to Chittagong, and the name Chittagong, I always liked the name Chittagong. It sounded so exotic. It could have been in China. So we all liked Chittagong, this port in Bangladesh, at the Bay of Bengal, but the port actually is inside at the river, at the Karnavuli River.
And it's a very green landscape, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of palm trees, green and hilly. It was, we all liked Chittagong. It was really a happy looking place.
I suppose after you've been in some very arid areas in
Yeah.
Sudan and central Turkey, this must have been wonderful to have this green, fertile landscape with rice paddies and buffalo. So you have fond memories of, not only because that's where you met your wife.
Well, I don't know why I was so fond of Chittagong. Anyway, I was in the office. Our stores were given by a Swiss company, trading company, Volkert Brothers, in Switzerland. They were a trading company, and they gave these stores to the Red Cross to ensure that it is not nationalized, because a lot of houses were nationalized also by crooks. I wrote that in the books too.
So stolen is another way of saying
Yeah,
nationalized.
stolen actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the help of corrupt politicians in the government. So one day I was actually number 3 when I arrived in Chittagong. German was number 1 and then Austrian was number 2.
And so you're working in distribution again in a warehouse.
Yeah.
Goods
It-
flowing
it was-
in,
it
they
was-
have to be sent out to the
It
people.
was an emergency situation in Bangladesh because the country had, I think at that time, about 70 million people, and today they have over 150 million. It's the most dense populated area in the country in the world. So we had to send by polyplane, by DC-6. They came 2 times a day. We had to send with trucks all the goods to the airport, by sampans, by railway. And when it became more serious, the Red Cross hired a Hercules plane, which could take 20 tons. We had to load 60 tons on 3 MAN trailers the night before because they were so quick. The captain once invited me in the Hercules plane. I could fly. I was sitting at the back in the cockpit, and after takeoff, the captain made me a cappuccino and served me biscuits. And they were flying on top of the clouds. I felt I'm in Switzerland on the glacier, turning around. It was like a dream for me. And then when we arrived at the border, at the Ganges River in Ishurdi, the captain said, "Stop the time, I want to know how long it takes to offload 20 tons." So I looked at the watch. You know, the 20 tons were on rolls, but on wood boards on the rolls. And the 20 tons were loaded and secured with nets. And when we arrived at the airport there and opened at the back, the loadmaster prepared everything, took the bolts away and the net, and phoned to the captain to accelerate a little bit. As soon as he accelerated, the 20 tons just rolled out. In 3-4 seconds, it was on the ground. So when we took off again, I told the captain, it took you 7 minutes to offload the 20 tons. He flew 5 times a day.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a dream flight for me.
But you had difficulties in that job as well, didn't you? So theft was a problem sometimes?
Yeah, to be very strict, because the workers, they had to feed their families. And they tried to steal things, and I had to be strict, I had to be really mean against them and dismiss them when they caught them stealing. Yeah, that was hard at times. I was also ending up in Chittagong in the High Court about stealing cases as a witness. And one day at 9 o'clock in the morning, I was already at 6:30 in my office, like every morning. The phone rang at 9 o'clock. And I thought, wow, what problem this time? And it was a charming voice asking to be connected to a director, so. I said, no, we don't have directors. I'm the boss now in Chittagong of the Red Cross. She said, oh, I'm sorry, I missed out the number. But her voice, the sound of her voice sound electrified me immediately. I said, I have to get to know this woman. And I started to involve her in a conversation, but she always wanted to hang up. So I kept asking where she phoned. She said she's a telephone operator in Glaxo Laboratories. And she wanted to ask her name, but she didn't want it to say. I kept asking till she told me her name. My name is Anne Gomez, and now we live in Gomez Way in Darch. and so she said, I have to hang up now. And I said I would like to invite you into the Chinese restaurant Gate of London tonight at 6 o'clock for dinner as my guest. She said that's not possible. Sorry. And then I said maybe tomorrow evening or after tomorrow. I don't know where I took my courage to keep asking. Then she said, I'm sorry, I'm not going out with foreigners. Thank you, and she hung up. So I was hoping she still will come.
That's very optimistic of you.
I was, yeah, I was. But at least I knew her name and where she works. And then I was 5 minutes before 6 o'clock, I was in the Gate of London at the first table where the glass door entrance is, and peeping and hoping. 6:05, 6:10, 15 minutes past 6. Said, no, she really can't come. And then I looked again, 3 minutes later, 6:18. I couldn't believe, I got a shock. A very beautiful young woman was on the way to the staircase to come into the restaurant, and I knew that could only be Anne Gomez. I opened the door, and we smiled at each other. It was Anne. And I said, please choose a table. And afterwards I said, please, you can choose our dinner. And I didn't hear her voice so exactly anymore. I only looked into her eyes.
What a story.
And I actually fell in love with her that evening. Then 8:30 she said, I have to go home because I live with my sister and they close the gate, the garden gate, at 9 o'clock. But I kept on talking, and I said, I'll take you home. And I was proud to drive her home in my Red Cross car. That car was also belonging to the Volker brothers from Switzerland, an American Chevrolet. And then suddenly she said, I'm living here, stop. So I quick got out, opened the door, and went to the garden gate to open it. It was already locked. The garden, we had come too late. That was my chance. I just grabbed her and lifted her over the gate. She was stunned and smiled, walked to the house and knocked, turned back and waved me again. And I drove back home. I could hardly fall asleep that night. Yeah, that's how it started.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah, 50 years ago.
50 years, wow. So I suppose that's partly what your connection with Bangladesh is, the fact that it's also your family.
Yeah, true. That's why we came to, later on, we decided to come for a holiday to Perth because she had up to 8 nieces here in Perth. And They all had a house. I couldn't believe they all had a house, which was impossible for us to live in a house in Switzerland.
So most people live in apartments in
Yeah.
Swiss cities.
Yeah. So after a few days, I asked Dad, how would you like to come and live here? You know what he said? You must be crazy. But after a few days later, she came up with the idea herself because she thought about it. And she realized with so many relatives, nieces and their families, it's like almost like in Bangladesh. Because they all left Bangladesh when the new government decided that English is no more taught in the school. So the Anglo-Indians, Catholics, they decided to leave. And they went to Canada, to America, to England and to Australia. So these Anglo-Indians, they run actually the country East Pakistan or India. No, it was Greater India. They run it. They run the judiciary. They run the railway, the post office, everything. Without the Anglo-Indians, the British would have never been able to run India. Yeah.
So you ended up in Girraween, and you built a house here. So that wouldn't have been that many years after the suburb first existed, I suppose. It was the late 70s, 1977, this building was sitting in. Girraween Library was built.
Yeah.
And not that many years after you were building your own house down the road from
Yes,
here.
the block was $12,000, and the house cost $27,000.
Sounds pretty cheap today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we got a loan from the Commonwealth Bank.
But after spending time back here in Perth, for a few years you did start to feel a sense of wanderlust again, and you did want to go back to working for the Red Cross.
Yeah, I wanted.
So
I wanted to work again because I was longing to work for the Red Cross to care for people in need. And
so there's a kind of excitement or sense of importance, I suppose, about
yeah,
that
because
work.
I felt I could make a difference as a Red Cross delegate
Mm.
because I enjoyed it so much.
And you were back in Sudan, in Kassala, was it? In
Kassala,
Kassala,
you know,
in the east of Sudan.
Eastern Sudan at the border to Eritrea.
It sounds like a very amazing location.
Yeah.
The city.
You know, when we went to Switzerland, when I took actually before that, the Swiss Bal airplane had to go for maintenance, and the captain said, if you would like to be with your wife to go to Switzerland for a holiday, you will be my guest. And so we took the chance. It was anyway time to have holidays, so I took Anne to Switzerland for the first time for 10 days till the maintenance was done on the plane.
Mm.
And my parents, they fell in love with Anne. They really had a great relationship. Yeah.
But just to talk about poverty, you saw a lot of poverty. You saw people who didn't have houses or refrigerators or cars or didn't have anything. If they're a refugee fleeing from war, they'd be lucky if they had a tent in many cases. So, and yet some of them had children.
Many children, yeah, because the children in Bangladesh, they are their old age insurance.
So you've seen people around the world who have very little material wealth.
Yeah.
Were they miserable? Did you see happiness even in a refugee camp?
No, not even during the war my first mission. The people in the war zone, they seem to be more happy than the people in peaceful Switzerland. They were joking, they were laughing, and maybe that was their way of overcoming that terrible situation. I am still proud that we had 1,100 tons of Australian flour in our. I sent a sample to the capital Lagos to see if it can still be used, and they said yes, it can still be used. It's not good quality, but you can still bake bread. So I engaged bakers. We found empty bakeries in the ghost town because the town of Enugu was a ghost town. And we decided on one bakery, cleaned it up, prepared everything, and started to bake bread. We made up to 1,000 bread every day. But of course, the bread was not, for me, the bread was not good. But they praised it in the refugee camps and in the hospitals. We tried to make the water a bit warmer, to put more yeast in it, and to raise it longer. Eventually it improved a bit.
Because you had the old baking skills, didn't you? From
Yeah.
your education.
Yeah, because that was my old profession.
Right.
I still feel proud that I could save 1,100 tons of Australian flour before, because flour was not popular in Africa. That's why they didn't use it. My predecessors didn't take any effort. Yeah.
But I suppose looking back, you have saved or helped to save many thousands of human lives over 40 years of work for the Red Cross.
Well, I was not actually 40 years, because every time I came back from a mission to Switzerland or to Australia later, I had no job. I had to look for temporary work, but that was never a problem for me to look for a job in a store or in any other company.
So with periods of working back in Switzerland and Perth, but you must feel very proud of what you've done with your life, helping so many people.
I am proud, because that was actually the reason that I wrote that book in German first. I had to write it down because my life was so extraordinary, so out of everything else, that I wanted to tell also what the Red Cross does in other countries. That's important to know. In the Swiss Red Cross wrote in their magazine that I was actually a pioneer as a Red Cross delegate in Africa or in Asia. Compared with today, there are not many delegates anymore going to Africa or to Asia. The responsibility is the local Red Cross in every country, or the Red Crescent. Each and every country has a Red Crescent or a Red Cross society. And in Geneva is the League of Red Cross Society. It's called today League of Red Cross Federation. They are the umbrella of all the Red Crosses around the world. If there is a disaster in one country, the the Red Cross or Red Crescent of that country can inform Geneva, the Red Cross Federation, and tell them about the disaster, and the Federation will then inform all the other Red Crosses and Red Crescents around the world, ask for specific help for that particular country. And like that it works. So the Red Cross Federation in Geneva is a real important.
And still today, isn't it? I mean, we've got 60 million odd refugees around the world as internally displaced people in Ethiopia and Yemen and Sudan. And with climate change, there's every year we have more refugees from drying areas of East Africa. So they're doing important work, and they're going to continue to be just as important, if not more important, into the future. So would you recommend people begin a career in development, in aid?
Of course, yeah, it is, but it needs certain people to feel confident and enjoy actually what they do. If you enjoy to do this type of work, it is a great profession to do development, but it needs certain people. I didn't have any education after my 9-year school in Switzerland. I had to pick it up and learn it later on my own, and practical learning by doing, and open my inner potential. I was the right person for that, but because I couldn't work as a baker anymore, I also couldn't go abroad, so I had to wait till I got that chance with the Red Cross, that they were looking for more people.
Well, you've certainly shown that your personality has the traits required to work in development, very adaptable and confident in the face of all of these obstacles.
Yeah.
Of corruption and not having materials and facing health threats. So I highly recommend everybody reads the book, because as I say, a focus on each of these regions or countries in each of the chapters of the book, and you get a good insight into what it's like to be in East Sudan, or on the river or the Bay of Bengal in Bangladesh, or in central Turkey, at those moments in history over the last 40 years, actually going back to 1968, so really the last 40 years of the 20th century, which is now 20 years ago. So yeah, please read the book, but should we now open the floor for questions from the audience?
Yeah, if you have any questions, any particular questions, I'm happy to.
No obligation to ask a question. You can also just chat with Hans Rudy in the time afterwards.
I've got a question. Why the Red Cross? Why did you choose the Red Cross? Was that because it was available to do development work?
Why I chose it? I didn't choose it. It was the only one which I had a chance, because I looked for people and I immediately reacted on that, said I want, that's maybe my only chance ever to go abroad. And I was really lucky that I got that job there, because it changed my life completely. I even found a wonderful wife.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, just briefly, was there much coordination between the Red Cross and other charitable organisations when you were in the same area trying to help?
Do
you talk to each other?
We are not competitors. We are trying to help each other. Yeah. We had meetings where different NGOs, they're called,
Yeah.
non-government organizations. We had meetings with them, but we all coordinated together, and we learned from each NGO their way of helping. And so it was for everybody it was an advantage. And not doing the same thing, everybody does the same thing. Others are specialized for certain things. The main thing is that I really wanted to write what I have experienced with the Red Cross. And I feel proud that I finally managed it, and that even my wife finally can read in this book in English what I've been up to.
Yeah, I have almost the same experience with you. I come from Southern Sudan and I work for the refugees' children, which was one of them, and got the same experience. And my son has written a book, The Father of the Lost Boys. I don't know whether you have a copy in the library here.
Oh, you'll have to give me your card afterwards.
Yeah, it was printed by Fremantle Press. Very popular, and we had a very good link with the International Committee of the Red Cross while we were refugees and we were displaced by war, and we were having airdrops. And we were talking with the same experience we had. Now, and then we came to Australia in 1995. And my son is a mining engineer. So we were in Adelaide, but he came and built his house. That is why I'm here. My wife is still in Adelaide. My question, especially when you were talking about the cholera is still very serious up to now. I went to Southern Sudan in May
This year?
this year,
Right.
but I had to take the vaccination for cholera. Otherwise, my question would be, at that time when you were responsible for those people suffering from cholera, was there vaccination available?
Was there a cholera vaccine when they had the
Yeah,
cholera quarantine area?
The team which actually worked in these cholera tents, they were all vaccinated. But I only went occasionally. I didn't get a vaccine, and I was never sick. I was never afraid of it, because I knew if I would get sick, I would get immediately the right treatment, and it wouldn't be a problem. But I feel actually proud that I had the opportunity to go into a cholera tent with 40 patients and help to empty the buckets and face the stench. Outside it was over 45 degrees. In the sun it was over 50. And inside the tent you can imagine when the cholera patients are, how it smells. And it was a 24 hours work.
And you also, when you were in that area, you saw her father lose his daughter, didn't you?
Oh yeah. Once I went to the refugee camp in Mount Sheriff when a man, a refugee, came out from the hospital and was carrying a white bundle with his daughter was wrapped up in the bundle, and I knew he now has to walk to the refugee camp cemetery. So I opened the door of the Land Rover and invited him to take a seat. I will take him. I couldn't talk to him because I don't know Arabic. But I felt so sad when I drove to the refugee camp, to the cemetery, and I touched his arm. I told him in English my sympathy, and he understood and he nodded. And when we arrived at the cemetery, he left with his daughter, carrying his daughter, and there was already a hole dug in the cemetery, and he put his daughter in that hole and started to cover it up. And he put a stone. They only have stones at the end to put as a stone that there is somebody. And I left the man there, and I went back. I felt very, very sad. One thing I haven't told, when I had to go to ministers or to other people working in the ministries, I had a problem I had to discuss, because it took much longer than every day, which was taking longer for a certain work, costed more money. So I tried to push, but I was always diplomatic. I never behaved like a representative of a country, from a rich country, where the Red Cross of that country is paying a project. I never acted like I'm the big one, I'm giving you that. I always tried to discuss it with his representative on the same level. I did not want to look down on them. And they I know they appreciated that, because I acted in such a friendly way and explained, and I showed understanding for their way of life, and their bureaucracy takes much longer than it would be in other countries. Yeah.
All right, well, can you please put your hands together for Hans? Feel free to stick around and talk. I'm sure Hans Rudy would be happy to sign a copy of his book if you'd like to buy a copy over here.
Imagine knowing cycles of the sun and the moon and stars, or how the clouds stay up. Imagine running with a cheetah fast, knowing what it hunts or its rival cats. What if you went back in time, with kings and queens of when our land was wild? You'll never know of this and more if you don't pick up that book. This African stories and African tales make you the wiser, it's all yours to gain. Knowledge is power, can change everything. Read African stories, see what you could be. Imagine going to the core of the earth, rising with lava through the vents, and you never get burnt. Taking the heat of the Sahara on the camels and the sand dunes with the snakes and the flashing floods. What if there's more to technology, and you're the genius holding its next key? Just know you're free, or to begin, if you just open the book. These African stories and African tales make you the wiser, it's all yours to gain. Knowledge is power, can change everything. Read African stories, see what you could be. Africa Wild Books is doing the most, publishing for you and bringing them close. Build up the library right there at home. Let your children read and imagine it all. Did you know that your mind is the biggest weapon you have? Just a word at a time, and the world will know who you are. Did you know that your mind is the biggest weapon you have? Just a word at a time, and the world will know who you are. Africa to Australia, a book at a time for everyone. A culture, a history, a heritage. You gotta read, yeah, read these books with African stories and African tales, making you wiser, it's all yours to gain. Knowledge is power, can change everything. Read African stories, see why you could be. Africa Wild Books is doing the most, publishing for you and bringing them close. Build up the library right there at home. Let your children read and imagine it all.
Yeah. With drums and a voice, we're inciting the sound, but stories staying around if we are writing them down. In the hands of Sudan, in the forest and the grassland, stories of the present are cast into the past, man, scrolling on phones, prisoners of our own addiction when we should be extolling the role of the tome. Cause time passes with lapse in ages, but we can capture phases and place on pages truth you can't think of, the world of the Dinka, improving the preservation I'm a drink to. So take all the oral traditions and vision them positioned in line and letters of ink, preserving your stories the way that you think. The tales of the sailors from ships that would sink, the families, histories displaced by war, no more in the dark when they read of their links. Sharing our lives, we need the mic. We stare through time when we read and write. Publish African stories, leave the world shook. Come and join the glory, Africa World Books. Our children can learn of worlds beyond when we write it in books, poems and songs. Publish African stories, leave the world shook. Come and join the movement, Africa World Books. We want to read what history's events are. We want to read how strong the men are. Future generations, we gotta let them in to be inspired by the truth of a veteran's memoir. God of martyrs, creator and the giver of life. It's hard to start, but would you give us all the power to write, the hours to read, the flowers to breathe, the power to see, imagination all brought to life. It's in your head if you read it, it's on your lips if you said it. And if it's Africa World Books, then guarantee you won't forget it. The whole world's falling asleep, but contrary, we can bury the seeds to wake wisdom in libraries. Mother Nature, earth is verse, it was written with her. It's in our nature, gaze upon and then be smitten with her. The world you see is supposed to be poetry. Let's bless the planet standing with the African literature. Sharing our lives, we need the mic. We stare through time when we read and write. Publish African stories, leave the world shook. Come and join the glory, Africa World Books. Our children can learn of worlds beyond when we write it in books, poems and songs. Publish African stories, leave the world shook. Come and join the movement, Africa World Books.